Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootlickers, bootshiners, bootleggers, boutonnieres. I'm a useful idiot. Welcome, and I want to talk about the Kurds and ISIS. I've been really curious about what the big picture is with this relationship between the Kurds in northern Iraq and this ISIS onslaught towards Baghdad. And there's been sporadic clashes all along, and there continues to be. But for the most part, considering the concentration of ISIS forces in the area and Kurdish forces in the area, it's surprising there hasn't been any major collisions. There's been sporadic fighting all along. In fact, last September there was an ISIS assault in Erbil, the capital of Kurdistan, and we've had battles in the southern Kirkuk province, which the Kurds are claiming, and is heavily concentrated with ISIS. So they're clashing there. And then in June 15th, we had ISIS blew up Kurdish offices in Diyala. So they were focusing on these Kurdish government offices, killing 50. So we can see that there's certainly tension existing there, and so that's why it's kind of surprising to find out that there's potentially a truce. And we can kind of assume from the way the events have unfolded there's an unspoken truce, and that seems to be what the consensus is. But did ISIS offer the Kurds a truce? Because we have a report in Kurdish media from June 16th, and it said that a Peshmerga officer said that ISIS had contacted them by courier saying, quote, "If you don't attack us, we won't attack you," unquote. Pretty clear terms of what we would traditionally call a truce. And apparently there are Peshmerga and ISIS checkpoints within a half kilometer of each other. So these forces are facing off in pretty close perimeters a lot of the time. And they use passing taxi drivers with ISIS wanting reassurance that they won't be attacked from the north by the Kurds. And in fact, a lot of the wounded from a lot of these conflicts in the field are being transported to hospitals in Kirkuk, where they are under the protection of the Kurds and the Peshmerga. And even a day ago, there was clashes outside of Mosul. ISIS attacked the Kurds. And reports, of course, from Kurdish sources say that the Kurds pushed ISIS back, and I saw other sources from Syrian sources that said the Kurds were pushed back. And but one of the things that was kind of interesting was the concentration of Christian villages around Mosul. And so Mosul proper is occupied by ISIS, and we already know that ISIS is specifically targeting Christians amongst others. And so the Kurds are actually protecting Christian villages in northern Iraq, which is an interesting side story. A Kurdish general even said, quote, "Our plan is not to attack anyone, but if we are attacked, we will respond with all our forces," unquote. I think that's something that ISIS is certainly taking into consideration right now. The Peshmerga Kurdish forces are not generally moving on ISIS positions. They're basically trying to take land from Iraq as it becomes available that they have traditional claims to, and also protect the zones that they are in charge of. These filling the power vacuum left by the retreating Iraqi forces. But this so it makes it clear that we have an uneasy truce between the Kurds and ISIS, and that's what I wanted to find out, and that apparently is true, and that makes complete sense. We have 100,000. There's reports of anywhere from 100,000 to 350,000 Peshmerga. I'm sure the truth lies somewhere in between, but we also have Kurdish forces available, Kurdish militias in Turkey as well, and there's also a militia in Syria, but of course they have their hands full. So, and they're trained, and they're motivated, organized, and they've been preparing for a year for this. So the Kurds right now are in an interesting position. But ISIS certainly is not going to hold any kind of truce, because we find out from another report that ISIS is announcing a new offensive in northern Syria, and this is a Kurdish region of Syria, northeastern Syria. And so this is, like I mentioned earlier, there's a very violent history between ISIS and the Kurds in that region of Syria. And just as in Iraq, the Syrian Kurds have an autonomous region, and they are merely trying to protect their areas. But we have lots of reports of atrocities against Kurds by ISIS in northern Syria, including the massacre of 450 Kurds at one site and multiple kidnappings of hundreds of people. So very discomforting. And of course, we don't necessarily know these ISIS announcements of how much credibility they have, either from source or for intention. But the fact that this is out there just adds to the big picture. And so there's a statement that came out June 17th, and this is what ISIS said. So it gives us a little insight into how they feel about Kurds, if this is genuine. And it says, quote, ISIS calls its units of God to lift high their banner of Islam in the al-Hasaka government and to free it from the Syrian regime, the grandchildren of the Jews, the Zionist Kurdish militia, and the grandchildren of the Crusaders, the Christian infidels, unquote. Let's remember that in northern Syria, where this ISIS offensive is purportedly going to take place, we also have a similar situation where we have Christians in northern Iraq that Kurds protect. We have a number of Christian refugees who have escaped the Mosul area who have moved to Kurdistan, and we also have Christians banding with the Kurds in northern Syria and finding protection there. So anyway, that kind of makes it clear what kind of relationship we have between ISIS and Kurdistan. Right now it's a truce of convenience. The Kurdistan is very formidable. ISIS knows this. They're going to concentrate on Iraq. They're going to concentrate on Syria. Perhaps make some other incursions for drama. And needless to say, with the jihadis flocking with this new reputation that ISIS has, their ranks could swell. And as we've seen from all these conflicts, from Afghanistan to Iraq, it will draw fighters from all over the region to join in. And I'm sure there's plenty of them over in Libya. Maybe half the population of Libya can go and join ISIS in Iraq now. We certainly know they're well armed, and they got the right mojo. So there we have it, Kurds and the ISIS in a temporary truce, but that could change quickly. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.